Okay, kit review time. Today we've got the Kinetic. This is the 1/48 scale FA2 Harrier. We've been after a kit like this for a long time, and I must admit it came as a bit of a surprise a few months back when Kinetic suddenly poked their hand up and said they're working on one. Obviously Airfix did the FA2. 1/48 scale, that's really it. Airfix are the only ones who've really sort of tackled the kit. It was recessed panel lines, but it's a very old Airfix kit, and to be honest it was soft. It wasn't very good. It had raised details on the wings because it was taken from the FARS1, which is you know, obviously the first generation of the Harrier. This is the bang up to date kit, new tooled and everything else like that, completely unopened. So as you can see on the front we have got some very nice box art, lovely painting down here, and we've got all the normal bits and pieces on here. So we've got some blurb, a few little reference shots, and the usuals all the way around this one. As you can see, 2014 kit, okay, and everything in there. So it is a kit number K48041. So if we just come in, stick it in here, we can have a look and see what we've got. So we've got fuse screw. We'll just start at our usual. So we've got a nice big Deckle Sheet. We've got a little bit of photo etch, which is very thin and bent. Okay, so we've got quite a cheap instruction sheet to it. Looks like someone did it on a photocopier, to be honest. So usual thing, we've got the parts trees basically down here. We've got the colour callouts in a nice spread of colours. So we've got the Humbrals, we've got the GSI colours, the Italeri now, which is different. Tamiya, not many of those to be honest. It's even got the MiG ammo colours, although there's none of it in there, but they're in the chart. Vallejo and the Model Air. So, usual thing, if you can imagine, we're going straight in with the cockpit. You've got an option, looks like, on the cockpit. Which be interesting to see what that option is. Does that mean there's another version? I was only aware of one. It looks like it goes together pretty much like the 72nd ones, as in that we've got these back system which doubles up as a wheel well for the fan, and then going through, the seat going in, and the bits and pieces. As I say, it's a bit strange it's on an angle like this. And then it looks like we do have working fans. I'm not a mass fan of this. I can't imagine why anybody would want to move them around, but if you did want to do it, it looks like the nozzles themselves will all swing because they are joined up in that sort of, I think it was the 1/32 Revel GR1 Harrier, the original one that was the Navy US one as well, Marine one, but as you say, look a bit odd. So usual things, poking all those bits and pieces inside. With the air brake obviously open and close, nice detail. The fans for the actual ducting system, you can have the little side vents open or close, which is pretty good. Usual things going in, wings, two halves going together, top section going on, obviously positioning then, so I think we'd have it manoeuvring around. Okay, then we got gear going in. As you can imagine, right the way through, usual things, the doors, I can't see any problems with any of this anywhere at all. It's saying for drilling out some of the holes, so it makes you wonder if there would be another version coming, but how they'd make another version out of this one is beyond me. Going up and close, the weapons fit, AMRAAM, Sea Eagle, Aiden cannon and sidewinder fit, which is the standard to the Harrier. And then obviously we've got the bits and pieces going down there, that weapons fit going on, pretty standard. And then we've got the cockpit set, the refueling probe, canopy open or closed as it goes right the way through. Okay, so which is very nice, which has been after for a while. We do have the positionable flaps, okay, which is a very nice touch to see. It's about time we've seen that. And then we've got the common markings all going down there for all the decal placements. And then for the other side, and for the one, so these were the decommissioning schemes that the actual Navy had. So this was 800 squadrons, was always very striking with that red back. It was always a nightmare putting that decal on. Okay, and then we've got the other one as well, which was the final one I remember, which had the original blue right the way over the top, okay, for our 899 squadron and everything else. Okay, Okay, and then just down here you've got the normal markings for the low vis if you wanted to do it for 801 and 800 as well. But as I said, this is all the decommissioning schemes that the actual aircraft have. It's quite nice because you've got all the information about the last cruise, the detachments, 2005, onto Illustrious as well, which is quite a nice touch. And we've got the Yeovilton March ones and the disbandment ones of 2006. I know this quite well because I used to live just down the road from this, and I used to spend many a happy afternoon at the end of runway 27 at Yeovilton in a farmer's field, having Harriers hovering right over your head. Nothing better. Okay, so if we have a look at the Deckle Sheet, as you can see, this does need to be a very thick, big decal because it needs to conform over the back of a Harrier. Very complex curve to it, so if it's not thick it would tear and everything else, and it looks actually very thick, but you're going to need that, to be honest. But the rest of them beautifully printed. It's absolutely gloss like all over it, which is really, really nice. To be honest, they all look really thick, but I think you'll get away with it. Minimal carrier film on it all as well, so very nicely printed, but to be honest it's cartograph decal, so you sort of expect that, but it does look very, very nice. Clean, crisp all the way through, as you can see. Plenty of different bits and pieces going on here for the different markings and everything else, and obviously we've got all the stencil data, but again really nice. We've got all the numbers down here, so you can make up any particular aircraft you want out of any of these schemes, which is a very nice touch. Basically any of the Harrier fleet that were around in 2005, 2007 time, you can make one from it, which is a very nice touch. Okay, so a tiny little bit of photo etch, which is extremely thin because it's bent already. These have got the fences for the wings, it looks like. I'm not sure what the other little bits are. A little bit of PE down there, but you can see quite nicely done, although I almost lost it. I'm going to tuck them inside there. Okay, so first bag up, we have, these are sticky bags, so we can peel these. As I say, we've been waiting for a decent Harrier for a while. It'd be nice if they redid the entire 48 scale. So first impressions, it's a very nice strong styrene, extremely hard, crispy. It's not the soft type, which is lovely to see. Looking at it, the detail a little bit soft. It's a tiny little bit soft with the actual rescribing, but I think it's good enough. Certainly it's got that effect with the riveting seems to be pretty much in scale. Everything in, as I say, it's just a little bit shallow, and then other things perhaps like around this tail back here is a little bit harder. If I just drop this camera in just a little bit, you can probably see, catch it in the light. See, it's quite hard, as you can see, because of the system we have here to show it. You can see that we've got some bigger markings here on the tail and everything else, but generally from what I remember of Harriers, and say unfortunately haven't been around them for a while, it looks pretty good, nicely done. It's a little bit soft down here on the bottom edge where the mould's wrapping around, as we've said before, and I'm wondering, I spoke about when we was doing the thing about, I'm wondering if you could backdate it or something. Well, they've actually got a cut mark inside the fuselage here. Now this is the band, the section which all the original FRS-1 Harriers went off and were sort of, you know, upgraded and updated, and because of that they had this band which I think was around about sort of I think it's around about 4 foot section put in, which lengthened the fuselage and everything else for it. But I don't know if you would chop that out, it would just make it join, because obviously everything would be slightly different, but it does make you wonder why it is completely cut all the way in there if they're going to try and release another version. But obviously the nose is different, so I can't understand how they would make that work, because just taking that out doesn't make an FRS-1. You'd have to do the nose as well, and I can't see a cut point on the nose unless they're going to come up with some clever, ingenious way. On the inside, as you can see, we've got some locating areas, some various things like that. Ejector pins are pretty much level. You've got one here, you're going to have to sand that one out because otherwise it's going to interfere with the other one, but pretty standard stuff. But generally all over it, the riveting detail seems to be pretty good. It does fade off in these middle sections, but generally, you know, it's all pretty much there. Can't complain about it. It does look nice, and it is nice it's that hard styrene instead of the soft one. Okay, so in bag 2. Okay, we'll do the big one first. So this is the wing, top of the wing. and if we catch it in the light, you can see we've got quite nice detail, pretty much spot on. It's a nice smooth, pretty riveting. It looks like it's got the correct top on it as well, working its way around the thing. These Vortex Generators, they're quite thin. I think they'll work. They are, I would say, at the wrong angle. It looks like they're actually perfectly with the angle, where I always thought they were slightly offset to generate more sort of vortexes. The idea behind these is that literally it creates more sort of rough air for the control surfaces to work better. So by generating more rough air over the top of the wing, it generates more lift and things like that. So really good on all of that. I'm having quite a good look and finding quite hard to come up with things. It's a little bit flashy around it, but no problems at all. Down on the inside, no problem. I'm guessing the old puffer jets, because obviously we've got this one down here and in there, they would be nicer to have them detailed a little bit more, but I think we'll get away with that. This is little holes in here and that go with these, obviously for controlling the aircraft and its roll when it's in the hover. I've got a little tiny ejector pin mark which is down in the middle of these, which would have been nicer to see that, not particularly there, but generally pretty good all over the rest of that. Obviously details, this is the nose wheel detail for this guy down here, but generally as you can see we've got some nice riveting detail and everything else going over with these tail planes, so that's pretty good. And then we've got no problem with these intakes, they look to be nice and smooth. It's a two-part system, so we've got an inside, so that's quite nice with the actual internal, so we've got no ejector pin marks in there. The actual little doors running in, they're pretty good. As I say, instrument panels, you can either have the twin one or the single. Now I'm going to have to do my homework here, but I always imagine there wasn't a twin one on the FA2. I thought it just had the single. So I don't know what it's saying about a different choice in that, but as I say, I am out of the loop of it. Cockpit detail, not bad, okay, pretty good. Nice detail for the rear. Actually, that's pretty nice down in there as well, so I think get away with that. The fan could have been a little bit nicer. It would have been nice to have that as a separate one, because that way you could actually do the fan in like a metallic and then the back wall a different colour to make it stand out a little bit more, but I think that's pretty good. Okay, so down in here we have, we'll do this guy first. So this is the, I think it's the main well for the gear, for the main gear, because there isn't actually a main well, I don't think. They've just done it in the closed position, which is fair enough. All the doors, the control surfaces, got a slight little bit of flash going on the control surfaces. Got the refueling probe, obviously quite nicely done. And then there's those parts all there, and then obviously all the little bits, as you can see. No real problem with any flash or any sort of little bits and pieces hanging over. That's quite nice. This is the control system for that nozzle, which I probably wouldn't bother with. Outer riggers for the actual gear, not bad. Again, it's not any flat wheels or anything else like that, or weight on wheels I should say, so unfortunately not. The main gear itself seems to be pretty good. I must admit, I'm finding it very hard to find a fault with this. You know, it's a little bit soft in some areas, would have been nice to see it sharper, but pretty good nevertheless. Pylons themselves, as you can see, very nicely done. We've got the Aiden cannons up here and the nose. Now the nose is the only thing I can see as a bit of a weak thing, because I don't know how well the camera can actually pick up this nose, but I just don't know. It doesn't look the right shape. I don't know why. It just has that needle in the back of my neck. Okay, so we've got, these are one-piece cast nozzles, which is quite nice, so you don't have two halves to go together. It's a shame they're not hollow. You could probably do something with that by just cutting out the back perhaps a little bit, and then you could have them as a hollow right the way in and everything else like that. Speed brake, some nice details in there. Main canopy, pretty good. Horrible split wheels and things like that. We don't like that. Okay. Right, looks like we've got a mirrored pair, which makes sense. So we've actually got here, we've got the Fuel tanks looking pretty good, so we've got some nice riveting detail and things like that going on with those. That's quite nice. Moving down to here, so we've got the sidewinders, we've got the actual sway braces, things like that for the missiles. We've got the smaller fuel tanks. Okay, weapon rails as we're going right the way through. A little air scoop there, which is for the Sea Eagle, I do believe. And then obviously the Sea Eagle missile itself. Quite a nice touch. AMRAAM missiles. So not too bad at all, those. Okay, so we have clear part. Actually, that looks quite nice. A little bit of flash on this guy. You probably see it on the edge here. But I wouldn't actually worry about that because the rest of it is pretty nice. You might be able to get away with a wash to do the deck cord on the top of this, so that hasn't too bad at all. But generally, that's very nice, clear. You see, there isn't much wobble going on down there, considering its complex shape. Got the windscreen wiper moulded in. Sometimes that's nicer to have as a loose fit, and then you can put it on afterwards once you paint it up. But generally quite nice. And then obviously we've got all the lights and the various things for it. I actually have to say, you know, not wanting to kick the kit or anything else, but apart from the nose, which I think looks wrong, but it's just that niggling thing in the back of my head that just says that doesn't look right. Actually, I have to say that looks like a cracking kit. It's everything we wanted in a Harrier, especially the FA2, because I think that sort of gets overlooked a little bit. But as a Harrier fan and knowing the aircraft quite well, it certainly seems to tick all my boxes. A few little things like why has it got the split for the rear fuselage? You know, I can't imagine a conversion coming along. It'd just be easier just to do a new fuselage and go for it like that. But certainly it's got everything I would be looking for in a Harrier. It's recessed detail, which is lovely. It's got obviously positionable flaps up and down, which is great because you can have it in the downward position, which is the first for the Harrier off the bat. And then obviously you've got all the little bits and pieces to really detail it up and to turn it into a fantastic model. So there you go. If you are in the mood for an FA2, and let's face it, I can't see why you wouldn't be, this is definitely the kit to get.